Welcome to Unashamed Life. Today we are continuing our study into the Gospel of John as John digs in deeper about telling us who Jesus really is. Today we will take a look at two different ways of handling the same situation, with our focus being on chapter 4, verses 28 through 42. Let's get started. Just to recap a little bit about where we are in the story, Jesus has just left Judea, heading towards Galilee, and Jesus chose to go through Samaria because he had a divine appointment prepared for the woman at the well. Upon arrival at the well, the Bible says Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. Jesus also sent his disciples into Samaria to get some food while he waited at the well for the Samaritan woman to show up for an appointment she was unaware of to be with him. I ended this last video with Jesus finishing his conversation with the Samaritan woman at exactly the same time the disciples returned from Samaria with their food. Interestingly enough, not only did Jesus have a divine appointment with the Samaritan woman, but also the divine return time of his disciples. They returned just in time to hear the end of their conversation, where the woman said to Jesus, "I know that the Messiah is coming, and when he comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus declared, "I, the one you are speaking to, I am he." Not only was this statement intended for the Samaritan woman, but also for his disciples. This would be the first known time the disciples would have heard Jesus actually profess to be the Messiah. But here's the interesting part. What mattered most to the Samaritan woman when she arrived at the well was to get water. However, that no longer was her main desire. The Bible says, leaving her jar, the woman went back to the town and said to the people that treated her terribly, the people that despised her and would not speak to her. But she said to those people, "Come, see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah?" Her heart was broken for these people, and she wanted to make sure they could also meet Jesus. On the other side of that coin are the disciples who spent time with Jesus daily. Remember, they went to town to get food while Jesus sat at the well. While the disciples were enjoying their food, the people from Samaria who heard about Jesus from the Samaritan woman are heading towards the well. You can almost see Jesus sitting at the well and watching at a distance as he sees this large crowd of people making their way from Samaria towards him. While the disciples are still oblivious to what is occurring, they were physically hungry and eating their food they brought back from the town. And notice, Jesus was not eating. So the Bible says the disciples urged him, "Rabbi, eat something." But Jesus said to them, "I have food to eat that you know nothing about." Remember how Jesus turned the conversation from drinking water into a physical need and living water into a spiritual need with the Samaritan woman? Well, here he goes again, but this time it was directed at his disciples. Jesus looks at his disciples and said, "My food is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work." Jesus is telling them feeding your physical body is important, but not as important as our primary goal, to do the will of him who sent us. Then Jesus reminds his disciples of something they should know, and he said to them, "Don't you have a saying, 'It's still 4 months till harvest'? I tell you, open your eyes and look at the field. They are ripe for harvest. They are not ripe with food. They are ripe with people needing Jesus." I can imagine Jesus lifting his arm up and pointing at the large crowd of people coming from Samaria towards them as he says to his disciples, "Thus the saying, one sows and another reaps is true. I sent you to reap what you have not worked for. Others have done the hard work, and you have reaped the benefit of their labor." The woman at the well did the hard work. She witnessed to those who did not like her. Remember, the most important thing for the woman at the well initially was for her to get water to drink. But when she met Jesus, she left her water jar behind and went back to Samaria to tell others about Jesus. The disciples left Jesus at the well and went to Samaria to get food and never mentioned Jesus to anybody. So as this large crowd of people from Samaria is coming towards them, this must have been a little bit embarrassing moment for the disciples. After all, they were the ones sitting under his teaching. Should they not have been looking for opportunities to bring people to Jesus? Or could it be, since they were Jews, they did not like the Samaritans? The disciples did not want to waste their time on them. Either way, they were wrong. Jesus himself spoke to the Samaritan woman. Jesus was breaking down the barriers and letting them know everybody needs Jesus. Clearly, the disciples missed an opportunity here to bring people to Jesus. However, it was a lesson well learned. Eventually, these disciples, because of their love for Jesus, changed the world forever. So let me leave you with this thought. The Bible says, "And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away.'" When Jesus says he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, do you ever wonder what causes the tears in the first place? Well, the verse continued with, "There will be no more death." Well, of course not. We're in heaven. Or mourning or crying or pain. Yes, part of that will be from our sin. But could part of it also be from missed opportunities because we failed to share or bring someone to Jesus and they are not in heaven with us? It's comforting to know that even the disciples missed opportunities, but they did not stay that way, and we do not need to stay that way either. So this week, let's make sure we are like the Samaritan woman and ultimately like the disciples and not hold a grudge against those who need Jesus, and look for opportunities to share the gospel with someone. Next week, we will look at a man who's in desperate need of an intervention from Jesus. If you want to get ahead, it's John chapter 5, verses 1 through 15. But until next time, be strong and courageous in the world and go live an unashamed life for him.